Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week. And if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. Today I'll show you how to make this classy cable stitch sweater. I love me some cables and love me some texture, so I put them together and made this lovely scoop neck sweater fit for every occasion. Speaking of, if you're looking to crochet something for your next big occasion, you're in the right place. We've got hundreds of modern crochet designs from classy regal to business cash, with more coming, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now it's time to get on with the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 450 grams of yarn, and that's 800 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 4.5 and 5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order. And enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us your favorite field trip you've been on. For me, mine has to be when I went to Disneyland in elementary. I don't remember too much about it, but I know that I had way too many sweet snacks. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 6 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, treble crochet, and double treble crochet. This tutorial is for a size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Next, we're going to grab our 5mm hook, and we're all going to start by making a chain of 8, and that's going to be for every size because we're getting started with our cable stitch section first. And now that we have our chain 8, we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 2. Now that chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's just our turning chain. And our row 1 is going to be a half double crochet row. So start with the yarn over. Then we're going to insert our hook into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook. We're going to yarn over, pull through that first loop. Now that we have those 3 loops, all we're going to do is yarn over and pull through all 3. There's our first half double crochet. Let's do one more. Yarn over, into that following chain, insert your hook, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3, and continue to put 1 half double crochet into every chain. Now that we have our first half double crochet row all finished up, we're going to get started on our second row, which is also a half double crochet row. So from here, chain 2, flip our work, and then make your way all the way down, putting 1 half double crochet into every stitch. Now that we've made our way all the way down with our second row, we're going to get started on our row 3, or our first cable stitch row, and we're going to start by doing a chain 2 and then flip our work. Now every cable stitch row is going to be worked into our previous odd number row, so since we're working on row 3, we're going to be inserting our hook into row 1. So we're always going to start off our cable stitch row with a front post treble crochet. So how that's going to work is start with a yarn over of 2. Now making sure that we're looking at row 1, we're going to find the first half double crochet from that row, not that chain 2. So this is my first half double crochet. What I'm going to do is bring my hook underneath the body of that half double crochet and then through the other side. So bring our hook down, through the other side of that half double crochet, we're going to yarn over and pull through. Now from here, we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. Now that is our first front post treble crochet all finished up. Now we're going to get started on the actual cable stitch section. So our cable stitch section is going to be worked in sets of 2. So we're going to start by doing our first front post double treble crochet, and that is going to start with a yarn over of 3. So there's 1, there's 2, there's 3. Once we have that, we're going to be skipping the 2 following stitches in our row 1. So we're going to skip 1, skip the second one, and then into that third available stitch from our row 1, insert your hook underneath that half double crochet. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through. Now once we have that, we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. So all together, we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over and pull through 2. There's our first front post double treble crochet, and like I said, they are worked in sets of 2, so we're going to be doing another front post double treble crochet into that following half double crochet from our row 1. So just like the previous one, yarn over 3 times, and then underneath that following half double crochet, insert your hook, bring it through the other side, and pull through. Now just like before, yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. Now there's our first set of stitches for our cable, 2 front post double treble crochets. Now we're going to be doing another set of 2 front post double treble crochets, working into the 2 stitches that we skipped. So starting into that first half double crochet, we're going to yarn over 3 times and bring our hook down. We're going to find that first skip stitch, insert your hook into there, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, and then pull through 2. And we have another front post double treble crochet to do into that last skipped stitch. So all together, yarn over 3 times again, and then into that last skip stitch, insert your hook underneath that stitch, and pull through. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, and pull through 2. Now to finish off our cable stitch detail, into the third and second to last stitch into our row 1, we're going to be putting 1 front post treble crochet into each. So start with a yarn over of 2, into that third to last half double crochet from row 1, insert your hook into there, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, and then once more into that second to last half double crochet, so yarn over twice, insert your hook, and pull through. Pull through 2, 2, and 2. Now to close off every cable stitch section, we are going to do a front post treble crochet, kind of like how we started with one, but the last one is always going to be combined with a half double crochet, so let's get that started. Start by yarning over twice. We're going to insert our hook into the last stitch that we have from our row 1. So bring our hook underneath that last stitch, yarn over, and pull through. Now we're going to continue to yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 2 loops left on our hook. So there's yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. And now that we have 2 loops, what we're going to do is yarn over once, and then insert our hook into the last stitch from our previous row. So bring your hook down, and then into that last stitch. Now from there, we should have 4 loops on our hook, and all we're going to do is yarn over and pull through all 4. So yarn over, pull through everything on our hook. Alright, so we have just finished up our last front post treble crochet combined with a half double crochet, and our row 3, or our first cable stitch row, is all finished up. Every even number row is going to be a half double crochet row because all our cables need to start along the right side. So for our row 4, chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. So I've made my way all the way down with my row 4, which is just a half double crochet row. Now we're going to get started on our row 5, or our second cable stitch row. So that row is going to also start with a chain 2 and then flip our work. Now, like I said in the previous clip, each of our cable stitch rows is going to be worked into the previous odd number row. So our row 5 will be worked into our row 3, and it's always going to start and end with a front post treble crochet. So let's get the first one started. From here, let's all yarn over twice, and then into the front post treble crochet from our row 3, we're going to insert a hook underneath that stitch and pull through. Now from here, just like before, yarn over it and pull through 2 until we have 2 loops left on our hook. Now to get started on our row 5's cable, we're going to put 1 front post treble crochet into each of the first 2 stitches that we have from our row 3. So yarn over twice, find that next available stitch from row 3, insert your hook underneath, pull through, and then continue to pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. And then we're going to find that following stitch into our row 3, and then insert with another front post treble crochet. Now that we have that, we're going to be working on the crossover section for our row 5. So that's going to start with a set of 2 front post double treble crochets into the third and second to last stitch from our row 3. So starting with a yarn over of 3, we're going to skip the following 2 stitches, and then into that third to last stitch, insert your hook underneath, pull through. We're going to yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. There's our first one. Let's do another one. So yarn over 3 times and then insert your hook now into that second to last stitch from row 3. And now that we have that set of 2 front post double treble crochets, we're going to be doing another set of 2 front post double treble crochets working into the 2 stitches that we skipped, but we're going to be working into that window that we just made for ourselves. So let's do the first one. Start by yarning over 3 times, and we are going to need to hang on to our yarn because it can very easily fall off our hook. And then we're going to pull our work down towards us, finding these 2 skip stitches within that window. So we're going to pull our work down and find those 2 stitches. Here's my first and here's my second. We're all going to start by inserting our hook underneath that first skipped stitch. So bring your hook back, underneath that first skip stitch, yarn over, pull through, and then from here, just like before, yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. Alright, so our first one is all finished. That's what our crossover should start to look like, and we're going to be doing one more into that following stitch. So yarn over 3 times again, hang on to your working yarn, and pull our work down. We're going to find that last skip stitch from our previous cable stitch row, insert your hook underneath, pull through, and then from here we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. And that is our cable stitch section. And just as a reminder, we are going to close off every cable stitch row with a front post treble crochet that's combined with a half double crochet. So start with a yarn over of 2, and then we're going to insert our hook into that last stitch from row 3. So bring your hook down, insert, pull through, and now we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now that we have those 2 loops, we're going to yarn over and insert our hook into the last stitch from our previous row, and then pull through. Should have 4 loops on our hook, so just yarn over, pull through all 4, and that is it. Our row 5 is all finished. Now our following row is row 6, an even number row, so that's going to be a half double crochet row. So start with a chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. So our row 6 is all finished up. Now from here, we're going to continue to repeat rows 3 through 6 until we get the length of the top that we want. So making sure that we're placing our first row where we want the bottom of this top to be, continuing to repeat rows 3 through 6 until we reach where we want the base of our neckline to be, making sure that we end on a cable stitch row. Now I'm just going to get started on our following row with you guys, just as a refresher. Let you guys do the rest on your own. Now we have just finished up our row 6. To get started on our row 7, which is a cable stitch row, chain 2, flip our work, and since this is our row 7, we're going to start with a repeat of row 3. So let's start that row off with our front post treble crochet, remembering that every cable stitch row is going to be worked into the previous cable stitch row. So there's our first front post treble crochet that we always do. And then to start our repeat of row 3, that's going to be a set of 2 front post double treble crochet into the 3rd and 4th stitch from our previous row. So yarn over 3 times. We're going to skip the first stitch, skip the next stitch, and then into the following stitch, 1 front post double treble crochet, and then another front post double treble crochet into that following stitch. And that's it. We're going to finish up this row and continue to repeat. And that's it. Just finish up this row, and then I will meet you guys back once we have the entire length that we want our cable stitch section to be. Alright, so I am back with the length of my cable stitch section. Now I have a total of 39 rows, and my length is just about 13.5 inches or 35 centimeters, and we're going to be doing one more row to add to the top. So we all should have ended right after a cable stitch row, so what we're going to do is start our following row with a chain 3. Now that chain 3 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain, and we're going to flip our work. Since our cable stitch section is the middle of our front panel, we're going to be forming a V so that we can get a really nice scoop when it comes to our neckline. So what we're going to do is 2 double crochets, 1 half double crochet, 2 single crochets, because that's the middle, 1 half double crochet, and then 2 double crochets to finish up this row. So all we're going to do is start with 2 double crochets. We're going to yarn over once. Into that first stitch, we're going to insert our hook, yarn over, pull through. When we have those 3 loops on our hook, we are going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. We're going to be doing one more into the following stitch. So yarn over, insert, pull through 2, and then pull through 2. Our following stitch is going to be 1 half double crochet, yarn over, pull through 3, and then our 2 following stitches is going to be 1 single crochet into each of those because that is our middle. So into that next stitch, there's my first single crochet, and then into my following stitch, another single. As you can see, it's starting to form a little V. And then closing off this row, we should have 3 stitches left. We're going to do 1 half double crochet. And then we're going to end it with 2 double crochets into each of the last 2 stitches. So yarn over, and then into that second to last, 1 double crochet, and then into that last, another double crochet. And then that's it. Now we can get started on our side panel. Now the first thing we're going to do is chain 1 and then turn our work because we're going to be doing a single crochet, making our way all the way down the side of our cable stitch section. And all we're going to do is alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side half double crochet row. But since we have this side double crochet row to work into, we're going to start with 2 single crochets into there. So right after our chain 1 and we turned our work, we are going to want to switch out to our 4.5 millimeter hook because we want this detail to be nice and clean. And we're going to start with our single crochets. So into our side double crochet that we have right over here, we're going to insert with 2 single crochets. So insert your hook into the side of that row with 1 single crochet, and then 1 more into that same side loop. And there's my second single crochet, and now we have our cable stitch section to work into. So start by finding our first side half double crochet row. Insert your hook into there with 1 single crochet. Into our following side half double crochet row. Find that top loop, and then we're going to insert into there with 2. So there is 1 single crochet, and then into that same side loop, there is 2, and that's it. Let's just do one more set. Find our following side row that we have right here, and insert your hook into that side row with 1, and then into that following side row, insert into there with 2. So there is 1, and then there is 2, and then that's it. Continue to do this, making our way all the way down. Right, so I've made my way all the way down with my single crochet row, and right before we get started on the following row, we want to make sure that we have an odd number of stitches for this single crochet row. So if you did the stitch sequence and ended on an odd number, you are completely fine. You don't need to add anything. But if you guys are like me and ended on an even number row, All we're going to do is add one extra single crochet into that last side row just so we can end on an odd number. And now we can get started on the following row, which is going to be our Suzette stitch. So from here, all we're going to do is chain 1 and flip our work. Now our Suzette stitch is just one single crochet and one double crochet into that same stitch. So inserting your hook into that last stitch from our previous row, we're going to insert our hook into there with one single crochet, and then into that same stitch with one double crochet, just like that, and that is one Suzette stitch set. Let's do this again. We're going to skip that following stitch because the double crochet from our previous set counts as that stitch. If we work directly into there, then we will be accidentally increasing, which is what we don't want. So we're going to skip that following stitch, and then into the stitch right after that, one single crochet, and then one double crochet, just like that. Let's do that again. Skip that following stitch, and into the stitch right after, we're going to insert with a single, and then we're going to insert with a double, and that's it. We're going to continue to do this, making our way all the way down until we have 2 stitches left. So we have made our way all the way up with our Suzette stitches, and all together we should have 2 stitches left. Now into that last stitch, we're going to be doing an increase of 3 half double crochets. So we're going to start with the yarn over. We are skipping that second to last stitch because remember, this double crochet stitch counts as that stitch. Into the last stitch into this row, we're going to insert with 1 half double crochet into that same last stitch with our second half double crochet, and then once more into that same last stitch with our third half double crochet. And now that we have that, we can get started on our following row, which is going to start with a chain 2 and flip our work. So now that we're along the top end of our piece, we're going to be starting with another increase, and this is going to start with an increase of 2. So into that first stitch, we're going to yarn over, insert your hook into that first stitch with 1 half double crochet, and then into that same first stitch with another half double crochet. So 2 half double crochets into that first stitch. And then from here, continue on with our Suzette stitch. You're going to skip that following stitch, and then into the stitch right after that, insert with our Suzette set. So that is a single crochet, and then a double crochet into that same stitch. Let's just do one more. A really quick tip that I have when it comes to doing our Suzette, each of our Suzette stitch sets will be worked into the previous row's single crochet stitch. So right here, we're going to be skipping the following stitch and then working into the stitch right after. As you guys can see, the stitch that we're going to be inserting our hook into is the lower stitch from our previous row, and that is the single crochet. So we're going to get the texture that we want. So skip the following stitch, into the stitch right after, 1 single crochet, and then a double crochet, and then that's it. We are now going to continue to do our Suzette stitches, making our way all the way down until we have 2 stitches left. So we've just made our way all the way down with our Suzette stitches, and we should have 2 stitches left. Now the last stitch may be curled under a little bit, but it should be there. As you guys can see, this is mine right here. And all we're going to do, since we're now along the bottom, we want this to be a really clean and blunt end. So we're just going to be putting 1 half double crochet into the last stitch. So we're going to be skipping that second to last stitch, and then into the last one, insert your hook with 1 half double crochet, and that is going to be how we end this row. Now from here, it's just going to be a repeat of these 2 rows that we just did with each other. So I'm just going to get these rows started off, and I'll let you guys repeat the rest on your own. So to get started on the following row, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and then into that first stitch that we have from our previous row, we're going to insert with our first Suzette stitch. So insert with a single, and then also with a double. You're going to be skipping that following stitch, and then single crocheting and double crocheting into the following. Now continue to do this until we have 2 stitches left. So now that we've made our way all the way back up with our Suzette stitches, should have 2 stitches left over again. And since we're along the top, we're now going to be doing an increase of 3 half double crochets. So start by skipping that second to last stitch, and then into the last one, we're going to insert with 1 half double, into that same last stitch with a second half double, and then into that same last stitch, a third half double crochet. And now we're going to work our way back down just once more together. So start with a chain 2 and flip our work. Now since we're at the top working our way down, we're going to start with an increase of 2 half double crochets. So into that first stitch, there's 1 half double, into that same first stitch, a second half double, and then we're going to do our Suzette stitches, making our way all the way down. So skip 1, into the following stitch, a single, and a double, and then continue to do this, making our way all the way down until we have just 2 stitches left. So we have just Suzette stitch all the way back down to the bottom of our piece, and we're just going to close this row off, which we need this to be blunt, so we're going to be putting 1 half double crochet into the last stitch from our previous row. Now we should have 2 stitches. We're going to skip that second to last stitch, and then into the last, insert with a half double crochet, and then that's it. So from here, we're just going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows that we did with each other until this width can reach about right where we want our shoulder portion to be. So for me, that's going to be about mid collarbone, and I will meet you guys back along the top so that we can work straight into our shoulder. Alright, so I am back with the first bit of my neckline. I have a total of 8 rows, and that is including my first single crochet row, and this width is just about 2 inches or 5 centimeters. Now we all should have ended along the top, and from here we're going to make an even number chain that reaches all the way up to our shoulder. So I've already measured mine out. I need a total of 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain of 22. And now that we have our chain, we're going to be doing our Suzette stitches, making our way all the way down because we don't need to be doing any increases for this shoulder portion. So start by blocking off that last chain and do a chain 1. Now into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, insert with our first Suzette stitch. So go ahead and insert your hook into that chain with our first single crochet, and then into that same chain with a double crochet. And then from here, we're going to continue to do our Suzette stitches, making our way all the way down. So just as a refresher, we're going to skip that following chain, into the chain right after that, 1 single crochet, and then 1 double crochet, making our way all the way down until we have 2 stitches left. Alright, so I'm back, and I've just made my way all the way down with my first shoulder row with my Suzette stitches. Now we should have a total of 2 stitches left, and we do need both of these ends to be blunt now, so all we're going to do is yarn over. We're going to skip that second to last stitch, and then into the last one, insert with a half double crochet, and then that's it. From here, we're just going to continue to repeat this row for our shoulder until we get a shoulder width that we like. So just to remind you, we're going to start this row off with a chain 1, flip our work, and then do our Suzette stitches, making our way all the way down until we have 2 stitches left. Half double crochet into that last stitch, and then repeat. Continue to repeat, and I will meet you guys back along the bottom so we can get started on the underarm portion. Alright, so I am back, and my shoulder strap is all finished up, and I have a total of 13 rows now, and my total width is roughly 3.5 inches or 9 centimeters. Now from here, we're going to start working on our underarm portion. So the first thing that we are going to need to do is insert our stitch marker into any stitch where we want our underarm to start. And I've inserted my stitch marker into the 30th stitch from the top. That's just about 7 inches or 18 centimeters. And we do want to make sure that we are inserting our stitch marker into an even numbered stitch from the top. So from here, since we all should have ended along the bottom, we're going to do our Suzette stitches, making our way all the way up until we have 2 stitches right before our stitch marker. So now that we've made our way all the way up with our Suzette stitches until we are 2 stitches right before our stitch marker, we're now going to do a decrease of 3. So how that's going to work is yarn over, insert your hook into that second to last stitch, pull through, also into that last stitch, pull through, and then also into that stitch marker stitch. So insert, pull through. Once we have those 5 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over and pull through all 5 of those loops, and that is our decrease of 3. Now to get started on our following row, we're going to start with a chain 2 and flip our work. Now working our way down, we're going to start with another decrease of 2 half double crochets. So starting with the yarn over, inserting our hook into that first stitch from our previous row, pull through, and then into that following stitch, pull through, and when we have those 4 loops, yarn over, pull through all 4. And then like I said in one of our previous clips, each of our Suzette Stitch sets is going to be worked into the previous row's single crochet. So right after our decrease, we aren't going to be skipping a stitch because our following stitch is a single crochet. So just inserting your hook into that following stitch that we have, insert with a single, and then a double crochet, so our first Suzette Stitch set. And we're going to continue to do our Suzette stitches until we have 2 stitches left. So we have made our way all the way down. We have 2 stitches left. Since we do need to keep this end blunt, we're going to skip that second to last stitch and then just half double crochet into that last stitch. And then we're going to do our following underarm row. So chain 1, make our way all the way up with our Suzette stitch, leaving the last 3 stitches, and then I'll meet you guys back. So we've made our Suzette stitches, making our way all the way up, leaving the last 3 stitches. And now we're going to do a decrease of 3 half double crochets into the last 3 stitches of this row. So starting with the yarn over, insert your hook into that third to last, pull through, second to last, pull through, and then into that last stitch, and pull through. Now all together we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 loops on our hook. So just yarn over, pull through all 5 of those loops, chain 2, flip our work, and then repeat. So whenever we're along the top, working our way down towards the bottom, we're going to start with a decrease of 2 half double crochets. Into that following stitch, we're going to start with our Suzette stitches, and we're going to close off this bottom portion of our piece with just 1 half double crochet because we need it to be blunt. And then from there, we're just going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows that we just finished with each other until this underarm portion can stretch over to mid underarm. And just make sure that you're stretching it as if you're wearing it because it will be fitted. And I will meet you guys back along the top and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. Alright, so I'm back and I've just finished up my underarm portion and just a little bit more. But just to let you guys know, starting with our first single crochet row until where I ended, I have a total of 16 rows. This width is just about 4.5 inches or 11 centimeters. And all we're going to do is the same thing that we did here on the other side. So all we're going to do is start by inserting our 4.5 millimeter hook into the top corner stitch of the other side of our cable stitch section. We're going to do our single crochet row first, making sure that we end on an odd number, and then repeat everything. Once we have that, I will meet you guys back so we can get started on the back panel. Alright, so now that I'm completely finished with my front panel, my total width is roughly 10.5 inches or 26 centimeters, and now we can get started on the back panel. And how that's going to work is we're all going to start by making a chain, the same amount of stitches that we have for our last underarm portion. So if you guys have my numbers, I had a total of 59 stitches. So right now I'm going to make a chain of 59 with still my 4.5 millimeter hook. And now that we have our chain, we're going to do our Suzette stitches all the way down. So just to remind you guys how to do that, first we're going to block off that last chain, do a chain of 1, and then into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, insert with our first Suzette stitch set. So that is 1 single crochet into that chain, and then also a double crochet into that same chain. Now right after this, skip the following chain, and then do a Suzette stitch set into the following chain. Continue to do this until we have 2 chains left in this row. Alright, so now that I've made my way all the way down, we should have 2 chains left. And now we're going to do an increase of 3 half double crochets into that last chain. So how that's going to work is yarn over, insert your hook into that last chain with 1 half double crochet, into that same last chain with a second half double crochet, and then into that same last chain with a third half double crochet. Now that is our increase of 3 for this row. What we're going to do from here is chain 2 and flip our work to get started on our row 2. That chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's just our turning chain. And now we're going to do our Suzette stitches, making our way all the way down, but we are going to start with an increase of 2 half double crochets now. So all we're going to do is yarn over, insert your hook into that following stitch with 1 half double crochet, and then into that same stitch with another half double crochet. After our increase of 2, we're going to skip the following stitch, do our Suzette stitch into that next stitch, and then continue to do our Suzette stitches, making our way all the way down until we have 2 stitches left. So now that we have made our way all the way down to the bottom, we are going to close this row off with just 1 half double crochet because we need the bottom to be completely blunt. So start with the yarn over, insert your hook into the last stitch from our previous row, then insert with a half double crochet. And that's it. From here, we're just going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows. So just to get started on the following row, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and then start with our Suzette stitches, making our way all the way down. When we have 2 stitches left, do an increase of 3 half double crochets. Then to work our way up to the following row, chain 2, flip your work. Now whenever we're along the increase side, we're going to start with an increase of 2 half double crochets, do our Suzette stitches, making our way all the way down. And when we have 2 stitches at the bottom, half double crochet into that last stitch, just like how we did right here, because we want to keep this as blunt as we can. Now we're going to continue to repeat those 2 rows for the same amount of underarm rows that we have for the front panel. Now I only have 3 rows, so I'm going to get another row done and then I will meet you guys back. Alright, so I'm back with my underarm portion for my back panel. Now from here, we're just going to work on the solid back panel that we're going to do, so it's just going to be Suzette stitch rows with no increases and no decreases. So just to get that started, since we're along the top, we're going to start by making a chain for the same amount of stitches that we skipped when we inserted our stitch marker when we were starting our underarm. So if you guys have my numbers, I've inserted my stitch marker into the 30th stitch. So from where I'm at, I'm going to make a chain of 30. And now that we have our chain, we're going to block off that last chain, do a chain 1, and then into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, insert with our Suzette stitch, so just a single crochet, and then a double crochet into that same stitch, and continue to do this, making our way all the way down until we have 2 stitches left. And now that we've made our way all the way down, we should have 2 stitches left, and then into that last stitch, we're going to be doing a half double crochet. So just yarn over, skip that second to last stitch, inserting your hook into the last with a half double, and then from here, all we're going to do is chain 1, flip our work, and then make our way all the way down with our Suzette stitch, making sure that we end the row on a half double crochet because we don't need to do any more increases or decreases. So when it comes to filling in our back panel, all we're going to do is do our Suzette stitch row, remembering that we aren't doing any increases or decreases, so the row is always going to end with just 1 half double crochet, and we're going to continue to do that row until we have the same amount of rows as our side panel, counting from our first single crochet row to our last shoulder row. And we're going to count that twice because we have the same thing over here as we do on this side. And then also when it comes to filling in our cable stitch section, we are all going to do a total of 2 rows. Now those 2 Suzette stitch rows is going to be a similar width to our cable stitch section that we have right over here. So just to do my quick math with you guys, I have a total of 13 rows and then another 13 rows. So I'm going to be adding 13 plus 2 plus another 13, and that's going to come out to a total of 28 rows. So I'll meet you guys back once when I have my back panel all finished up. Alright, so I'm back with my solid back panel. I have the entire amount of rows that I need to do my back panel, and now all we're going to do is our underarm. So we all should have ended along the bottom, and the underarm is actually going to be done the same exact way that we did the front panel's underarm, so I'm just going to refresh your memory. So we're all going to start by inserting our stitch marker into the same amount of stitches that we inserted into for the front panel. I've inserted my stitch marker into the 30th stitch from the top. And then from here, we're going to do our Suzette stitches, leaving 2 stitches right before our stitch marker. We're going to do a decrease of 3 half double crochets. After that row, chain 2, flip our work, start with a decrease of 2 half double crochets, do our Suzette stitches, making our way all the way down, and then place 1 half double crochet into the last stitch because we need the bottom to be nice and blunt. And just continue to repeat those 2 rows until we have the same amount of rows as all of our other underarm portions. Do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I'll meet you guys back. Alright, so I've just finished up my underarm portion for my back panel, and I did do a chain up of 1 and cut, and now the entirety of my back panel is all finished. Now that we have this, we're ready to seam our pieces together. So let's all start by grabbing our front panel, and we are going to lay it on top of our back panel, making sure that the cable stitch section is faced downwards because we want all of our seams to be along the inside. And we're going to start by seaming our shoulders. So we're all going to start by inserting our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Next, we're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and all we're going to do is put 1 single crochet into every side row, making sure we're working in through both the front and the back panel at the same time. So let's get that started. Start by finding our first side row. Now this is mine right here. I'm just going to insert my hook into that top loop, into the front panel. Then I'm going to find my first side row within the back panel and insert my hook into that top loop as well. And from here, all we're going to do is 1 single crochet to connect it. Let's do another one. This is my next side row within the front panel. I'm going to insert my hook into that top loop. I'm going to find the same top loop within the back panel, insert my hook into there, and then just single crochet them together. And then that's it. We're going to continue to do this until we don't have any more side rows left to work into within the front panel. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat everything we just did here on the other side. So now that our shoulders are all seamed up, we're ready to seam our sides. So first things first, we're going to want to make sure that our cable stitch section is still flipped wrong side out. Now from here, we're going to be inserting our hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and the back panel, and then we're just going to single crochet all the way up, working into both the front and the back panel at the same time. So all we're going to do is insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and let's do our first single crochet seam. We're all going to start by finding that first available stitch into the front panel and insert your hook. Next, we're going to find that next available stitch into the back panel, insert your hook into there, and then single crochet them together. Just like that. Let's do that again. Into that next stitch into the front panel, insert, into the next stitch into the back panel, insert, and then single crochet. And then that's it. We're going to continue to do this, making our way all the way up. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat everything we just did here on the other side. Alright, so now that everything is all seamed up, the next thing we're going to start working on is our sleeve. So what we're going to want to do first is make sure that our work is flipped right side out, meaning that all of our seams are along the inside and our cable is faced outwards. And then from here, we're going to be inserting our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our side seam. We're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and then for this first row, we're going to make sure that we're working clockwise or to the left, and we're going to start with a single crochet row all the way up and around. So we should all have a few side rows to work into, which is our underarm portion. All we're going to do for this is alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. So let's just do those first few together. So this is my first side row that I have right over here. I'm going to insert my hook into that top loop, and then all I'm going to do is just 1 single crochet. Just like that. And then this is my following side row. I'm going to find that top loop and insert my hook into there with 2 single crochets. So there is my first. And then go ahead and insert your hook into that same top loop with our second single crochet. Now I actually just have 1 extra side row, so I'm just going to do that one with you guys. So I'm just going to find that top loop for my following side row and insert my hook into there with just 1 single crochet. And now that we have our underarm portion all finished up, just make your way all the way up and around, putting 1 single crochet into every stitch. When we reach the underarm portion for the back panel, again alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row, and then slip stitch into that chain space, and I'll meet you guys back so we can get started on our row 2. Alright, so our first row is all finished up, and that was just a single crochet row. Now the next row that we're going to do is going to be a half double crochet row, and I'm using air quotes because the first few stitches are going to be single crochets because we need the top to be a little bit longer than the bottom so it can start to curve over our shoulder. So what we're going to do is make sure that we're still working clockwise, and we're going to start by putting 1 single crochet into every stitch for the same amount of stitches that we have for our underarm portion right over here. So if you guys saw my numbers, I had a total of 4 single crochets that worked up my underarm. So right now I'm going to be doing another set of 4 single crochets. So right after we slip stitched into that chain space, we're going to chain 1, and making sure that we're working clockwise, we're going to insert our hook into that first stitch with 1 single crochet, and continue to put 1 single crochet into every stitch for the same amount of stitches that we have for our underarm, and for me that was 4 stitches. Once we have our single crochets all finished up, we're now going to be doing half double crochets, making our way all the way up and over our shoulder until we have the same amount of stitches left as our underarm that we just did. So if you guys have my numbers, I just did 4 single crochets, so I'm going to be leaving 4 single crochets so I can put 1 single crochet into each of those stitches for me. So just to do this half double crochet, we're going to start with the yarn over, insert your hook into that following stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3. Now from here, continue to put 1 half double crochet into every stitch, making sure that we're closing off this row with our single crochet stitches, slip stitch into that chain space, and then I'll meet you guys back. So we've just made our way all the way around with our half double crochet row, and now our following row is going to be a back loop slip stitch row, so let's get that started. Right after we slip stitch into that chain space, we're now going to chain 1 and then flip our work. And we're going to be flipping our work so that we can see the ribbing that the back loop slip stitches are going to do. So to do our back loop slip stitches, we're going to find that first available stitch from our previous row, and we're going to insert our hook only into that back loop. When we have those 2 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over and pull through everything. Let's do that again. Into that following stitch, insert your hook into that back loop, yarn over, and pull through everything. Let's just do one more. Into that following stitch, insert your hook into that back loop, yarn over, and pull through everything. And a really quick tip that I have for you guys is once we finish our back loop slip stitch, make sure that we're not accidentally tugging on our working yarn too tight, because then the following rows can be really tight to work into. So just continue to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, slip stitch into that chain space, and then I will meet you back to show you how we're going to do our following row. Alright, so we've just finished up our row 3 for our sleeve. And now we're going to do our half double crochet row, but we're now going to be incorporating some decreases because this needs to be nice and snug around our arm. So how we're going to do that? Right after we slip stitch into that chain space, we're going to chain 1 and then flip our work. Now right after that, we're going to be putting 1 back loop single crochet into every stitch for the same amount of stitches that we had for our underarm portion. So like I said in the previous clip, I had a total of 4 single crochets, so I will now be doing a total of 4 back loop single crochets. So start by finding the back loop into the first stitch from our previous row, yarn over, pull through 2. There's my first back loop single crochet. Let's do that again. Into my following stitch, insert in through that back loop, pull through, and pull through 2. And continue to put 1 back loop single crochet for the same amount of stitches as underarm stitches that we had. And like I said, I had 1, 2, 3, 4. So once when I have that, we're now going to be doing a decrease of 2 back loop single crochets. So into that following stitch, insert your hook into that back loop, pull through, into the stitch right after that, pull through. Once we have those 3 loops on our hook, just yarn over and pull through all 3. Now from here, right after we do our decrease, we're now going to be putting 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the same amount of stitches that we need for our underarm portion, plus an additional 2 so that we can do our decrease. So I will be meeting you guys back when I have a total of 6 stitches left. Alright, so I've just made my way all the way up and around with my back loop half double crochets. I have left my total of 6 stitches left, and now we're going to do a decrease of 2 back loop single crochets, and then put 1 back loop single crochet into every stitch. So just to do our decrease together again, we're going to start by inserting our hook into that following stitch, pull through, into that following stitch's back loop as well, pull through all 3, and then from here, just put 1 back loop single crochet into every stitch. And once we've reached the end of the row, slip stitch into that chain space that we made when we started off this row, chain 1, flip our work, and then we're going to do our back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases. And then right after that, it's going to be a repeat of those 2 previous rows. So our half double crochet with our decreases, and then our back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases until this can get nice and snug around our arm. And I will meet you guys back once we have that right after a back loop slip stitch row. Alright, so I am back and I've just finished up the first half of my cap sleeve and I have a total of 21 rows. Now from here, since this is nice and snug around my arm, we're now going to do the same rows that we did, but now without the decreases until this becomes completely horizontal on our arm. So just to do the first row with you guys, we should have ended on a slip stitch row. The next row is going to be a half double crochet row. So we're going to start with a chain 1, flip our work, and we're going to continue to put 1 single crochet into every back loop for the same amount of stitches as our underarm. So for me it was 4, so I'm going to do 4 back loop single crochets. And now that I have my 4 back loop single crochets, we're just going to hop straight into doing our back loop half double crochets. So just to do the first one, we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into that following back loop with a half double crochet, and that is it. Continue to put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, remembering to close off this row with the same amount of back loop single crochets as underarm single crochets that we made when we started off this section. Slip stitch into that chain space, and then do a back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases. Now from there, we're just going to continue to repeat those 2 rows until this line becomes completely horizontal on our arm, and then I'll meet you guys back right after a back loop slip stitch row so I can show you guys how we're going to work on the length. Alright, so I'm back with the second half of our sleeve. My sleeve is now completely horizontal on my arm, and I now have a total of 29 rows. Now from here, we're just going to work on the length of our sleeve, and that's just going to be a half double crochet row and a back loop slip stitch row, and we're going to throw in some decreases within that as well. So let's get started on our first all half double crochet row. So our first half double crochet row is going to be pretty simple. Right after we slip stitched into that chain space, we should have ended on a back loop slip stitch row. We're going to do a chain 2, flip our work, and all we're going to do is put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch. No increases and no decreases into this row we're working on. So I'll meet you back once we reach the end of this row. So we've made our way all the way around with our back loop half double crochet row, and I'm just going to show you guys how we're going to close off this row as well. So what we're going to do is count up the first 2 chains that we made when we started off this row. So start by counting up 1, counting up 2. Into that second chain, we're going to insert our hook with a slip stitch. And now our half double crochet row is all closed off. And just like the previous rows, we're going to do a back loop slip stitch row now, and that's not going to have any increases or decreases into it. So chain 1, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and I will meet you back at the end of this row so I can show you how we're going to do our decreases within our half double crochet rows. Alright, so we've just finished up our back loop slip stitch row, and now our following row is going to be a half double crochet row, but now we're going to be decreasing into the first 2 and into the last 2 stitches just so the sleeve can stay nice and snug along our arm. So I'm just going to show you guys how we're going to do this one, and then I'll talk you guys through how we're going to do the rest. But to get this row started, we're going to start with a chain 2, flip our work, and we're going to start with a decrease of 2 back loop half double crochets. So find that first available stitch and insert your hook into that back loop, pull through, insert your hook into that following back loop, pull through. Once we have those 4 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over, pull through all 4, and that's how we do a decrease of 2 back loop half double crochets. Now from here, we're going to be putting 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch and leave the last 2 just so we can decrease together once more. Alright, so now that we've made our way all the way around with our back loop half double crochets and we left the last 2 stitches, we're now going to do another decrease of 2 back loop half double crochets together. So all that's going to be is yarn over, insert your hook into that second to last back loop, pull through, into that last back loop, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 4, and then just to close off this row, we're going to count up 1, 2 stitches, and then slip stitch into that second stitch to close off this row. Now remembering that our following row is going to be a back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases, now we're just going to continue on with these rows. The decreases are going to be completely up to you and what size and what fit you guys want, so you guys can decrease into every half double crochet row, every other, every third, or just randomly. That is completely up to you guys, just as long as it fits nice and snug along your arm, because this is going to be a sleek sleeve. I already have my other sleeve already finished up, so I'm just going to show you guys where I have decreased for mine, and then I'll let you guys do the rest on your own. So from where I left you guys off at, this is where we are. Each of my purple stitch markers is right where I decreased, so as you guys can see, I decreased into every other half double crochet row, but yours can be a little bit different. And then right around where I got to my elbow, I just did half double crochets because it was starting to get nice and snug and I didn't want it to get too tight. And then once I got past my elbow, I decreased into every third half double crochet row until I got the length that I wanted for my entire sleeve. So go ahead and get your sleeve all finished up. I will meet you guys back right after a back loop slip stitch row. Alright, so I am back with the entirety of my sleeve length, and I have a total of 81 rows. From here, we're going to get started on our cuff. So our first row is going to be a back loop single crochet row, continuing to go in the rounds. So we should have ended right after a back loop slip stitch row. So all we're going to do from here, after our slip stitch into that chain space, is just chain 1, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop single crochet into every stitch. Make our way all the way around, putting 1 back loop single crochet into every stitch, slip stitch into that chain space, and then I will meet you back. Now that our single crochet row is all finished up, we're now going to make a chain the length that we want our cuff to be. Now I would like for my cuff to be just about 2 inches or 5 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain of 10. Now once we have our chain, we're going to be doing a slip stitch row. So start by blocking off that last chain and then do a chain 1. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with our first slip stitch. So all we're going to do is insert into that chain. Once we have those 2 loops on our hook, we're just going to yarn over and pull through both of those loops. There's our first slip stitch. Let's do this again. Into that following chain, insert your hook, yarn over, and pull through both loops on our hook. And we do want to make sure after we finish every stitch, we aren't tugging too tightly on our working yarn, otherwise our following row can be really tight to work into. So continue to put 1 slip stitch into every chain. So now that we've made our way all the way down with 1 slip stitch into every chain, we need to connect it into the base. So how we're going to do that is find that next available stitch, we're going to insert our hook, yarn over, pull through everything, and now this first row is nice and attached. Now our following row is going to be a back loop slip stitch row so that we can get some really nice ribbing. So just to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch up that following stitch into the base, flip our work, and then we're going to make our way all the way down, putting 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, remembering again not to tug too tightly after every stitch. Now that we're at the end of our row, we are along the outside edge, so just to work our way up to the following row, all we're going to do is a chain 1, flip our work, and then continue to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and then I will meet you back at the base so I can show you how to connect it just once more. And now that we're back down towards the base, all we're going to do is find that next available stitch into the base, slip stitch into there to close off this row, and then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch up that following stitch, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. And continue to repeat these 2 previous rows that we just did with each other, making sure that we aren't doing any increases or decreases, making our way all the way around. And then when we don't have any more stitches left to work into the base, I will meet you back so that we can seam our cuff together. Alright, so we've just made our way all the way around with our back loop slip stitch rows. We don't have any more stitches left to work into the base, so now we're going to seam everything together. So since this is going to be an outside loop slip stitch seam, we are first going to want to make sure that our work is flipped right side out. And then we're all going to start by inserting our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Once when our hook is in through there, we're going to yarn over and pull through everything. And we're all going to start by finding that first available stitch into the front panel, and then we're going to insert our hook only in through that front loop. Next, we're going to find that next available stitch into the back panel, and then we're going to be inserting our hook only into that back loop. And when we have those 3 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3. Now that's our first outside loop slip stitch seam. Let's do just one more together. Into that following stitch, within the front panel, we're going to be inserting a hook into that front loop. And then into the back panel, we're going to be inserting a hook into that back loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3. And that's it. We're going to continue to do this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. Once we have that, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat everything that we just did here on the other side. Alright, so we are back and we have just finished up both of our sleeves, and the last thing we're going to have to do for this piece is our collar. So we're first going to want to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, and then we're going to be looking at the back panel. So we're going to be inserting our 4.5mm hook into the top of any one of the side loops that we have along the back panel for our neckline. Go ahead and insert your yarn onto our hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and all we're going to do for the back is put 1 single crochet into every side row. So let's all start by finding our first side row, and this is mine right here. I'm going to insert my hook into that top loop with 1 single crochet. We're going to find our next top loop, which is this one for me. Insert into that top loop with another single crochet. So just 1 single crochet into every side row. Let's do one more set. This is my following side row. Find that top loop with a single. This is my next side row. Find that top loop and insert with a single. Now we're going to continue to do this, making our way all the way around. Along the front, we will put 1 single crochet into every stitch, working our way down the shoulder. And then once we make our way down to this corner, we're going to continue to put just 1 single crochet into every side row, and then 1 single crochet into each of the stitches that we have on top of the cable stitch section. So continue to do that, making our way all the way around, and then slip stitch into that chain space. Alright, so we've just finished up single crocheting along the entirety of our neckline, and now we're going to make a chain the length that we want our collar to be. Now I would like for mine to be about 1 inch or 2 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain of 4. Now that we have our chain, go ahead and block off that last chain. Do a chain 1 and then into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, insert with a slip stitch, and then put 1 slip stitch into every chain. Now that we've put 1 slip stitch into every chain, we're going to connect it into the base. So start by finding that next available stitch into the base, insert your hook into there with a slip stitch to close off this row, and then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that next stitch into the base, flip our work, and just like how we did our cuff, we're now going to be putting 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. And now that we're at the end, that is it. All we're going to do is chain 1, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch again, making our way down towards the base, connecting it into the base the same way that we just did. And we're going to continue to do this, making our way all the way around our neckline, and I'll meet you back when we don't have any more stitches left to work into the base so that we can seam it all together. Alright, so we have just made our way all the way around with our back loop slip stitches, and now we're ready to seam our collar because we don't have any more stitches left to work into. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure that our work is flipped right side out, and we're going to be inserting our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel, and then we're going to yarn over and pull through everything and do a chain up of 1 to secure. And now this is going to be the same seam that we did for the cuff, so an outside loop slip stitch seam, so let's just do the first one together. Start by finding the first stitch into the front panel and insert your hook into that front loop. And then find that next stitch into the back panel and insert into that back loop. Once we have those 3 loops on our hook, all we're going to do is yarn over and pull through all 3. And that's it. We're going to continue to do this until we don't have any more stitches left, and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. And then once we have that, we are all done. And then the last thing we're going to have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Check us out on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye!